All right, so we'll go ahead and record this for internal purposes, just in case anybody wants to review it later, or for the people that miss it. So I thought what we would do first is just kind of go through I'll email this document to you guys, but let me just start with this kind of an FAQ document that will take us through some basics. So these are extremely exciting visuals you guys are going to be looking at here with these Word documents and stuff first, but get some of the questions out of the way. So first of all, I guess some of you guys may be wondering what does this integration with OnCenter do? What's the purpose of it? So the main reason we did this was historically any sort of takeoff systems, whether they're based on digitizer boards or on-screen takeoff, typically we get the results from those systems into hard dollar through Excel. And so what we did here was we kind of took that to another level and made it more dynamic and made it more interactive. So the OnCenter tool, the OnCenter on-screen takeoff, which is the official name for the product, which I'll refer to as OST from now on, is probably, from everything I've seen, is the most popular takeoff system out there that works off the screen. So you can open up blueprints, drawings, any sort of electronic file, PDF files, JPEGs, TIFF files. You open those up, and then you can trace over the drawings in order to get lengths and counts and volumes and areas and that kind of stuff. And I'll show you some examples of that. Okay, but it's used at the beginning of the estimating process in order to, if we're a contractor, we've got the plans. As long as we've got electronic version of those plans, we can open them up on the screen and figure out what all the quantities are, because that's obviously going to be the first step in driving our estimate. We need to know what those quantities are. Okay, so some examples here, like we're trying to figure out the length of a pipe run, or we're trying to figure out the area of a foundation or the volume of a concrete slab, or if we're working on a process piping assembly, we might be looking for counts of elbows and T's and so forth. So you'll see as we get into this that the quantities we take off in OnCenter can come in. We covered a few use cases. Sometimes people are going to bring those quantities in as just cost item quantities. Sometimes they're going to come in as resource quantities. Sometimes they're going to come in as assembly quantities. Okay. Any questions from anybody just about what OnCenter is? I mean, I'll show you some examples here in a minute, but just any questions in general right now?
No, I'm good.
All right. How does the integration get installed? Currently it's all done through the plugin layer. So right now it's just a matter of putting 3 files onto the client's machine. So those 3 files, we'll as of end of day today, when we expect to have everything wrapped up, we'll send those files out so you guys all have them. And this paragraph here tells you where to put those files. The integration will be incorporated into version 11, so when version 11 comes out later in the year, then you won't have to put those files in separately after the 10.3 install. So once 11 comes out, it'll be automatic just like everything else. Okay, but for now we got to deliver it through the plugin. We haven't done a lot of work validating what versions of OST are supported with the integration. We've had I've had it out at a couple of beta sites, and one of them so far we've not been able to get it to work, and they are on an older version of OST. So the earliest version that we've tested with is version 3.8.1, and I think it's .12 or something like that. But we're pretty confident that it'll work with the 3.8.1 release of OST. Okay, the customer that couldn't get it to work was on 3.8.0. something. Okay, so I think as long as they're on at least 3.8.1, they'll be okay. Okay, but we'll try to narrow that down. For you guys, if you just want to play with it and see how OnCenter works, you can go just right to their website. There's a link in here. that you can go to get a functioning trial version of the software. We can get licenses from OnCenter and we have some for full licenses for developers and demos and stuff, but if all you want to do is just kind of see how it works, the trial version is just as easy to do that with. It comes with a sample project, and you can't add anything to that sample project. There's a lot of data in there already that you can use just to see how it works with hard dollar. As far as current customers, we are planning an email blast to the whole customer base. We were originally shooting for today, but I think we'll probably push that to Monday. And that will let them know about the integration. It'll let them know about a webinar that we're doing on Wednesday. Okay, so Wednesday we're doing a public webinar where we'll demo the integration, and anybody that wants to see how it works can log into that webinar. As far as documentation, Gene has updated the online help system, but again, until version 11 comes out, 10.3 has the 10.3 help system, so that doesn't do us much good. So what we did was she basically extracted the portion relevant to OST and created a PDF file, which basically looks like this. She's going to do one more pass on it to basically take out these links, just because it's kind of confusing when you see something that looks like a link, and in the PDF file they're not really links. Okay, but it does. She did a nice job putting this together with screenshots, and it really shows you how the thing works, how to get into it, what do all the fields mean. Okay, so this will when somebody buys this. In the meantime, prior to version 11, they'll get in fact, I think that's the next question on the list here. Oh, okay, so yeah. So anybody buys it right now before version 11, they'll get the installation files, they'll get the instructions on how to install it, and then they'll also get that PDF file to help them understand how to use it and how to get started. 10.4, any questions?
Nope.
So far, so good. So far, so good? All right. All right, let's take a look at it and let's see how it works. I'm going to go into a job that's got some on-center items in here already, and then what we'll do is we'll go through those different use cases we talked about. We'll bring in some brand new items. We'll update some existing items that have changed. We'll look at bringing in items as cost items or assemblies. Okay, so I'm going to go into my CBS for this process job. Everybody seeing my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And make sure you can see the full width of the screen, otherwise it's because we're going to do a split screen here in a second. All right, so this job's got various items in here, and what we're going to do now. So let's take the scenario where we've done some takeoff and on-center. We want to see what those results are, and then determine what do we want to bring into this estimate. What do we want to drive in this estimate from the on-center takeoff? So we get to it as a data source. Okay, so we go into data source, import update CBS, and then there's the new choice there for on-center. There's one of the things we're still changing is that menu choice needs to show the full on-center product name, so that'll get longer. Okay, but still get to it the same way. Once I click on that, it's going to launch on-center, which their API. We interact with on-center, by the way, through their API. Okay, and as soon as you basically start interacting with their API, it automatically launches on-center. So nothing we can do about that, but generally that's probably a good thing. Okay, so now we've got on-center running. So let's just do a quick overview of on-center, just so you can see how this tool works. Okay, so I'm in on-center. Here's a list of the projects. This Edwards training sample comes with the free trial, by the way, so you can use that. Let's open that one. So I'm just going to double click on it. On-center does have some videos on their website too, by the way. If you want to, this is going to be a 2-minute crash course on on-center, but if you want more detail on it, you can look at the videos on their website. Okay.
Can I just make a comment about that for the other guys and for the other audience that might be listening to the recording? They're very good. I've gone and looked at some of the videos, and they're very informative and have answered my questions, so I would definitely recommend to take a look at those videos if you want to learn more about OnCenter.
So that's good to hear. I looked at just the first few seconds of some of them, but it's good to hear that they're good. Rick, you obviously need more things to entertain yourself with over there.
Well, that's just my threshold for entertainment is pretty low, so take that with you.
On-center videos is better than pay-per-view, isn't it? All right, so here's the deal. We've opened up when you create a project in On-Center, which we're in here now. You can go in and basically load drawings into the project. So each of the I'm in the Image tab right now. Okay, so there's multiple drawings that you can associate with a project. Okay, I mean you could have a few drawings, you could have one drawing, you could have some of our prospects have told us they might have hundreds or even thousands of drawings for a single project. Okay, so those will be listed in here. So once you're looking at a particular drawing, that's what we're seeing over here in kind of gray. And what we've done, what the estimator typically does on top of this, is to create these different conditions that you see listed over here, and then trace along the drawing in order to get the information that you want. So for example, if we look at that concrete slab right there, which is green, which is this section right here where my mouse is. Okay, so what we did was we just traced along that area. You can see it's kind of an unusually shaped area. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing where On-Center, a tool like this really shines, where if you've got an area that's 10 by 10, it's pretty easy to calculate the area, right? But if you've got if it's an odd shape like this and you're going around corners and diagonals and stuff like that, all you got to do is trace along that area, and On-Center will calculate that. So when I click on that, you can see it's got handles all around that shape, so I can extend it. Right now, if you look over on the left, the quantity is 324 square feet. 116 linear feet, so the perimeter of it, and then 6 cubic yards. So when you set these conditions up, you can define what are the units that you want to calculate, what are the quantities that you want to calculate. Okay, so if I double click on that, we can see the properties. I can give it a name up at the top, in this case concrete slab. I can go in and choose what color do I want that to be on the drawing, what pattern do I want it to be. And then these quantities, I can calculate up to 3 quantities for each condition. Okay, so here we're doing an area, a perimeter, which is by the lineal foot, and volume by the cubic yard. Okay, so one takeoff will give you all 3 of these quantities. Okay, so if I take that quantity or that takeoff area there and start to change it. So maybe the owner comes back and says, let's extend that concrete slab out further. I can click on that and drag it out, and now you can see those quantities have changed. 373 square feet. Okay, just so you see how easy this is. Let's just do a new condition real quick. So I'm just going to click the plus sign down below. I can use this little wizard kind of thing here to say what kind of condition do I want to do. Let's do a I don't know, let's do a count. Okay, so a count, we're just going to click on various things in order to keep a running total of how many of those things there are. So let's say I don't know, maybe we're doing electrical takeoff and there's transformers in various places in the building. Okay, so we'll say transformers is the name of it. It's a count. We choose the color. Let's make it purple. Okay, we'll use a square shape. That's fine. Okay, click OK, and now I can go. Obviously, you need to understand the plans you're looking at, or understand what the blueprints are telling us. But if we're going to have a transformer here and here and here and here and one over here. So as we're doing that, you can see over to the left, as I'm clicking on the plans over to the left, the transformer count is going up, so it's up to 6 now. Okay, so this is a real simple example, obviously, but imagine if this was a process piping diagram, and we're trying to count how many, elbows and T's and flanges and all that stuff in a very complex piping system. This really comes in handy because we can just interact with the plans. We know what we've already done. Everything's color coded. Then we can move on to the next thing that we want to take off. Okay, and like I said, on a big process piping job, I mean, we've heard customers tell us, like I said, that they might have hundreds or even thousands of drawings, and each one of those drawings could have, dozens or hundreds of takeoff conditions in them. So you're talking about thousands and thousands of lines that we need to get into the estimate somehow. Okay. Does it make sense so far? I'll take that as yes. All right, so, as we're doing that, the quantities are being calculated over here on the left. If I go into hard dollar now, okay, see what it's done for us. So it's split the screen for us. So we've got this is a new thing for hard dollar, this design data integrator. Okay, so what we're doing with this design data integrator is we're setting this up as a framework where ultimately we can pull in this kind of stuff from multiple sources. On center is just the first one that we're working with. But later in the year, we're expecting to be able to, through a tool set that we're looking to embed, we're also looking to open up all the major CAD formats. So we can do the same kind of thing with Autodesk and Bentley and Intergraph and MicroStation and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this design data integrator is really the framework through which we are interacting with OnCenter. Okay, now you can choose the project that you want up here. So this drop down gives you the list of the projects. So it reads that right from OnCenter, so it knows what projects are in there. So we want the Edwards training. If we want to make sure we got the most recent quantities showing in here, we can just hit that refresh item list button. Now take a look at the status of all these items. So if you see all these items came in, and remember how you could take off multiple quantities for each item. So there's that concrete slab that we were just looking at, and there's the three quantities that were calculated: the square foot, the lineal foot, and the cubic yards. Okay, now notice the status says imported, not current. Okay, that means that item, we have put that in the estimate already, but it's not current. Why is it not current? Anybody know?
You changed it.
Good answer, Rick. Okay, if you look, I've got this item highlighted over on the left. The on-center item is highlighted. What we do to kind of help you find it in the estimate over to the right is we highlight it in green. So there's that concrete slab over in the estimate to the right, highlighted in lovely green. And you can see the quantity that we previously brought into the estimate was 324. Now that we changed that slab over and on center, the new quantity is 373, and that's why it says not current. So we're flagging that for you. You can, this is a register, typical register, so you could set up views. For example, you might want to have a view that's just set up to filter, show me everything that's in the estimate but not current. Right. So as we change our on-center takeoff, anything that's in the estimate but out of date now would just show up. That's all we'd see in this window. Okay, so you can use the column filtering, saved views, just like we do on any other register. Okay, there's a few differences in this register. It's not a full register. We don't have the X button down in the bottom for your clearing the filter, and there's a few other nuances of this register, but for the most part, it works like a normal register. You can also use the check boxes down below. Do we want to see, if we only wanted to see new things, things that have not been brought into the estimate, we can just leave it like that. Or we only want to see things that are in the estimate. Okay, so there's two things, that concrete slab and the metal frame walls, that are in the estimate. One of them is out of date, one's current. Okay, now show me just the items that have changed. Okay, so you can use those check boxes down below or your column filters to interact with the list here. All right, so let's take, I mean, the easy scenario to start with is that concrete slab, which is not current. We want to make it current. So all I got to do is check that box, hit that update CBS button, and that's going to update that number. Okay, so as soon as I do that, any items that I checked over here are now going to be into the estimate, and if they were already in the estimate, they're going to be updated. So now you see it's up to 373. All right, let's look at new items now. If I wanted to, you know, let's filter on, just show me the new ones, and maybe I want to get a bunch of these into the estimate. Okay, there's two ways to do that. You can go in and just take, you know, click on the things you want. You can control click if you want. But let's just say I want that ceramic tile, you know, somewhere in the project. I can just click on it, drag it from left over to right, and then drop it off wherever I want it. I'll just drop it off at the where's my mouse? There we go. Oop. Oh, that's interesting. It's not letting me. Something going on there. We'll have to look into that. It should let me drop this wherever I want it. For some reason, right now, it's only letting me drop it on a subordinate, not a level 1. We'll have to figure that out. Okay, but you can take these, you know, just drag and drop them where you want. So let's put this in the. Holy cow. I think maybe my mouse cursor is just lagging. Let me see what happens if I drop it off. Hold on, guys. Okay, here's what's going on. This will be a nice little segue. When you drag and drop something, or when you click that update button, if it's a new item, it's going to adhere to these rules. Okay, so it's going to look at what do you want to bring that in as. Remember, I said you can bring it in as a cost item, as a resource, or as an assembly. Okay, so we had it set to resource. So if it's going to come in as a resource or an assembly, you've got to drop it off on an item that can just, you know, adheres to the regular rules of the CBS, right? It'll become an employment on that cost item. Okay, so if I tried to drop it off as an employment on civil, we don't allow that because that already has subordinates, and you know we obviously don't put employments on items that have subordinates. Okay, so all those same rules are in place. Okay, let's bring these in as cost items. Okay, so now I should be able to drag this thing wherever I want it. Okay, there we go. I'll drop it off on the job level, and then we'll see it come in just as a brand new item. Down at the bottom, there's that ceramic tile. Okay, 128 square feet, just like we had in the project. And one of the things we do, if you set up these, if you use these filters, you know, where we're saying just show me the new items. Now that I've dropped that that one into the project, let's see, did I filter? That might be from another building. Yeah. Okay, so that one that we dropped in is no longer in the list. There's some other ones still in there from other buildings. So like building 2 is still in there. Okay, but the one that I imported is no longer in the list. So you can, you know, if this is kind of the list you're working with, you can just kind of work your way down here, start dragging things into the estimate, and then you know, if you've got your filter on new, then the things you've already imported are going to go away, and eventually you'll have nothing left in the list, and that's how you know you've brought everything in. Okay, you could also just do a select all, and if you come back over into the estimate, let's say you just click where you want all that stuff. So I've got all of these new items highlighted. I click on job over to the right. So instead of dragging and dropping, if I've got a whole bunch of them to work with, I just highlight them all, or select them all, I should say, choose where I want them to go on the right, and then hit the button, and that's going to bring all of those in at once. Okay, now you can see those down on the left. They've all been added in, and my list over to the left is blank, so I know I've taken care of everything. Okay, does that make sense?
Yep, looks good.
Yep.
All right, so let's do an example of a resource. Let me see what assemblies, if I've got any assemblies in this job. Okay, here's a good one. So here's a pipe assembly. If we open up that assembly, we can see what's in it. So here's an assembly in the hard dollar resource library. Okay, that we're basically saying for every 10 feet of this pipe assembly, we're going to need 10 feet of this particular spec of pipe. And we want to make some assumptions here about caps and flanges and tees and pipe fitter hours, labor hours. Okay, so we're saying for every 10 feet of this, we need 12 hours of this pipe fitter, 12 hours of this labor. Okay, and all these things have costs in them already. This part that I'm about to show you, I think, is really the most powerful thing, and we heard from the on-center folks that nobody else, because there are other people that integrate with on-center, other systems, but according to them, we're the only ones that do this sort of assembly associations that I'm going to show you. Okay, so we have an assembly in hard dollar that drives all of this stuff. Okay, if we go, let's go back into on-center, and let's just create a new condition. Okay, so let's say we're trying to figure out, we know we need that pipe assembly, but we don't know how much of it we need, right? So we can go in here, create a new condition. We'll create a linear condition because we want to calculate the footage. We'll call it, maybe it's a water pipe. Okay, we'll make it this nice fuchsia or whatever that color is. All we'll calculate is the length. Okay, and now I just need to trace. Maybe we know that water pipe is going to go. I don't know. Maybe the connector's out here, and it's going to go over here, and from there up to there. Okay, so as I'm doing that, as I trace through that, we see the length over there is 101 feet. Okay, so now if I come back over to hard dollar, and we let's make sure we're looking at all. Maybe we just want to look at only show new items. Okay, so we'll turn that off. We'll refresh. Okay, so there's that water pipe, 101.8 feet. Okay, so now if I want to bring that as an assembly, what I need to do is say I'm going to change my options here to let's bring stuff in as assembly employments. Okay, and what that's going to do is open up if I scroll over to the right here in this list, that's going to open up this field here called HD resource. Okay, so I can associate that on-center item called water pipe with an assembly from the project's assembly list. So I'll associate it with that spec, that pipe assembly we just looked at. And not only is it going to, bring that assembly in with the quantity that was calculated on center, but it's also going to remember that association now. Okay, so one of the things that people typically do in on-center is you can kind of have a library of, if we're taking off a particular type of water pipe, let's say, you might color it the same way on every project. You might have, certain parameters about it being the same on every project. So you can have a library of these things that you use over and over again. Okay, well, if you've done that, then it stands to reason that since you have a library in hard dollar of the associated resource, now we make this association so every time we bring in that item from an on-center drawing, it knows to go find that assembly and look for that assembly in the library.
And is that match done just on the name, or are there other attributes that it uses to define the match?
It's only on the name. The name is unfortunately in on-center there's no unique identifier or ID number or anything like that for the item, so all we could match on was the name. Okay. Now, what I understand from the on-center folks is because of that, the fact that there's no other identifiers in on center. People get real specific with their names typically.
Yeah.
So I've got a pretty generic name here, but so on center you might more likely see this as stainless steel water pipe, certain diameter, certain thickness, and et cetera.
You bet. But it doesn't. I guess my question was more on the unit of measure. If I have something called concrete, I would probably have to specify whether that was area or volume.
No, I'm sorry. It does use the unit of measure. Yeah. So the unit of measure is part of that association.
Okay. Perfect. Cool. So it does the match on the name and the unit of measure.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, now I've got the association made. I just need to employ this in the estimate where I want it. So let's go through our project over here and find where we might want to put that. So here's some underground pipe. So maybe we'll just pull it into that section there as a new item, or as a new employment. In fact, let's go put a new line item in here to hold that assembly. So we'll call this water pipe. Okay, so now I've got a place to put it. Since I'm putting this in as an assembly, I've got to put it on an existing item, right? So I'm going to just click that, drag it, drop it off on top of that water pipe, and we'll see that come in now. If I let's double click on that item now and see what we've got. Oh, okay, I see what happened here.
Yeah, picked up the parent's quantity.
One, yeah. When I added that water pipe child item, it picked up the parent's quantity of 1,000, which we don't want. So we'll just make that a one lump sum. Okay, but you can see what it brought in now. So it brought in there's the assembly that it brought in, that intermediate carbon steel pipe spec assembly. The 101.8 feet came in from on center, from our takeoff, and now it brought in all of those things underneath for the for all of the values, right? So we got our pipe, we've got our caps, our flanges, and that kind of stuff. We didn't set up our assembly very well for our man hours there. What did I do there? What did I do there, Rick? Why did those not come in as hours?
I wasn't paying close attention. They were set up initially as quantity driven.
Yeah.
Because when you change the quantity of a non-duration driven resource, we leave the work hours alone. So change that 101.8 that's highlighted right now.
Yeah.
Change that to like 3, and then you'll get a prompt saying, you might have disabled it. There's typically a prompt that would say you're changing the quantity of a non-duration driven hourly resource, which won't affect its work hours.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out why I did something wrong in the assembly, but when I had it set up before, the hours were coming in here.
Okay. But you would get 1 each.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting. Get 1 each, and then the hours, right? Because we had 12 hours for every 1 foot.
Double click on the assembly row. Let's take a look and see how the assembly is set up. Yeah, so they're quantity driven there. 12 hours.
That should bring them in as hours then, right?
I would expect those to come in at 12 hours. Or
12 hours per 10 feet, right?
It might have something to do.
That's all right. Let's not get off on a tangent now. But that's just a hard dollar thing. But the point of the integration is that you can, by taking off one thing and on center, in this case that length of that water pipe, Right, so we do one takeoff and on center for that water pipe, but we can then use that to drive all this other stuff in hard dollar, right? We can drive, if we know how many feet of that water pipe we need, we can also make some assumptions about, how many caps and flanges and fittings and all that kind of stuff, okay, as well as labor hours. Okay, and then like I said, the beauty of it is that association is remembered, so that if that item comes along again on a future project, it's going to default that association. So when we look at, let's show everything in here. In fact, let's look at, right there. So that water pipe and that association to that HD resource is going to be remembered. And so we don't have to, once we kind of mapped it one time, we don't have to do that every time we're taking off water pipe of that type.
Is that for this job or for any job?
It's for, I've not tested that, but the spec was for every job, so it should remember that. So again, it's a default here. So if you're in but this drop-down list is the list of assemblies in that project.
Okay.
And so if you're in a project and that assembly is not in the library, I believe it'll show it in there as red, like it can't find it. It knows it's trying to find it, but it can't, so it'll show it red. It's supposed to show it red.
Cool.
Okay, but you can also always override that too. If you, on this project, we don't want it to come in as that assembly, you can still, well, this one's already been imported. But if it was a new one and it hadn't been imported, we could go change it to something else.
Perfect.
Is this all making sense?
Makes perfect sense. And what you showed earlier makes sense to me because, one of the questions I had asked early on when I first saw this was, could we bring those items over initially to set up the CBS, then circle back and, bring in the assemblies, right? And I guess you could fudge it a little bit if you went back into the drawing and just, added a tiny little increment to your takeoff. You could then come back and update existing cost items that you've already imported from on center with the appropriate assemblies.
Oh, you mean kind of do it in two passes?
Yeah, just kind of cheat it a little bit, because that way they'd show as imported, not current, and then you should be able to update the existing items with those, right?
Yeah,
so
I've not tried that, but presumably that would work.
Okay. I can give it a shot, but I didn't think about doing that earlier, but I think that might work.
Yeah, and I think part of that is going to depend on, if you're, I think the two buckets people are going to fall in are, if we have a kind of standardized structure that we're always working in, where we have maybe a standard WBS, we're probably going to, typically bringing things in, maybe one at a time by dragging and dropping, or taking a bunch of things and dropping them into, say, the civil section or the pipe section. Whereas I think there are other use cases, we're starting with nothing. We have no line items in the estimate, and so we want to, literally all this stuff is going to come over as level 1 line items, and then we'll start, in hard dollar moving things around and bringing in resource employments on those line items, and then stuffing them into, into sections and moving them down into level 2s.
Yeah.
And so it's really flexible. I mean, if you bring a line item in and then you start moving it around, it's still on center. The integration still knows where it is, because on our side we do have a unique identifier for each item. So if an item moves from, that water pipe, moves from 3.5 to 10.5, the integration knows where to find it, so it can still update it. It'll still highlight it in green for you and all that kind of stuff, even if you've moved it around.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I think that's everything I wanted to go over. We've got a few minutes left. If anybody has any questions or thoughts or comments.
No, I think you did a really good job showing us it.
I'm sure there will be, like anything else. I'm sure there'll be, like anything else new, I should say. I'm sure we'll run into some things that we hadn't covered and some oddities that we'll have to walk through. So, once we get it out there, I mean, the nice thing about it is it's not all of a sudden going to be something that, you know, thousands of people are using. It's going to trickle out. We've got a few beta sites using it right now, which I'm managing. I'm telling them not to call support about that, but you know, once it's